Why did Native Americans sleep soundly on frozen ground? They had several secrets, and I will reveal them now. Many imagine winter on the Great Plains or in the northern forests as an icy hell, where sleeping on the ground is equivalent to death. We tend to think that without modern technology, sleeping on frozen soil will inevitably lead to hypothermia.
Me too. This fire, the heat stabilizers, everything is perfect.
However, the indigenous peoples of North America lived in these conditions for millennia, not just surviving, but maintaining comfort in their homes.
Come inside quickly, the wind is biting!
How did they solve this problem? It's a true engineering masterpiece achieved using only natural materials. This system involved each element, from spruce branches to tanned hides, playing its precise role. Watch the video until the end, and you'll discover how the ingenious double layering system worked, why bison fur was more effective than modern materials, and how simple hot stones turned sleeping areas into warm, safe oases. What if I told you that everything you've believed about Native American winter survival isn't entirely true? We often imagine Lakota warriors or Cree hunters as people stoically enduring unbearable cold. This picture paints them as almost superhuman, with bodies impervious to frost. But the truth is much more interesting and lies not in endurance, but in unparalleled knowledge. They didn't endure the cold, they defeated it through intellect. A modern person, even in expensive gear, might suffer if they don't understand the basic principles of heat loss. Indigenous peoples, however, perfected a system over centuries that minimized these losses. They didn't see winter as an enemy to conquer with brute force, but as a condition to adapt to skillfully. This fundamental difference in perception is the key to their success. Fear of the cold was replaced with respect for it, and a precise understanding of its laws. This knowledge wasn't innate. It was a science passed down through generations. Children were taught from an early age which tree species provided more heat and which produced less smoke. They knew how to properly lay spruce boughs to create an air cushion, and why dry grass was the best insulator. For us, cold is an abstract discomfort measured in Celsius degrees. For them, it was a series of concrete physical threats: conductivity, convection, and evaporation. And for each of these threats, they had an exact engineering solution. Take, for example, the European settlers or explorers, who initially tried to fight the cold by simply making huge bonfires. They warmed the air around them, but continued to lose heat through contact with the frozen ground. This was a fundamental mistake that the indigenous peoples would never have made. Their approach was holistic: the right shelter, the right clothes, and most importantly, the right bedding. This system functioned as a unified mechanism where each component reinforced the other. They didn't just build shelter, they created a full-fledged microclimate.
We need more grass for the base layer.
Yes, the cold comes straight from the earth.
This approach proves that a deep understanding of nature is far more effective than simply fighting it. They didn't challenge the elements, they used its laws against itself. It was a quiet victory of intellect over the brute force of cold. This system didn't just allow them to survive, but to live full lives, raising families, performing ceremonies, and practicing crafts. A comfortable sleep wasn't a luxury, it was a necessary foundation for everything else. They knew how to ensure that comfort. I'd love to hear your point of view. Do you think this survival approach was innate resilience passed down genetically, or pure calculation and accumulated knowledge? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn more ancient technology secrets. Want to learn a secret that will change how you think about surviving in the cold? When a person is out in the cold, their first thought is to protect themselves from the icy wind We instinctively seek shelter from drafts, wrapping ourselves in clothes to warm the air around our bodies. But indigenous peoples knew that the real and most treacherous enemy was invisible and directly beneath their feet. This enemy was the frozen ground, which has enormous heat conductivity. Air, even very cold air, is actually a poor conductor of heat. If the air is still, it acts as an insulator. But the Earth is a massive, endless radiator, drawing heat from any warm object in contact with it. To understand this principle, just recall a simple experiment. Sit on a wooden bench in winter, and then on a stone parapet at the same air temperature. The stone will feel unbearably cold because it quickly pulls the heat from your body, while the wood, a poor conductor, does this much more slowly. Now imagine that this stone is the entire planet beneath you, frozen several centimeters deep. A human body with a temperature of 36.6 degrees Celsius is like a small furnace to this frost. You can build the biggest fire, but if you lie on the ground, you'll never get warm. You can't warm the earth beneath you. It will simply keep taking the heat until your body's temperature matches its own. This is a direct path to death. Indigenous peoples understood this instinctively and practically. Thus, the number one task in organizing a camp was not to warm the air, but to completely disconnect the body from the earth. A barrier had to be created to stop the heat transfer. Their entire winter sleeping technology was built around this single but vital principle. Europeans often didn't understand this, laying a single bear skin on the snow. They wondered why, despite being close to the fire, they woke up cold. The skin, pressed under the weight of the body, lost its air cushion and began to conduct heat almost as well as the bare ground. Indigenous peoples did it differently. They knew that one layer, no matter how thick, wasn't enough. A multi-component system was needed, one that created not just a barrier, but a whole buffer zone made of the universe's best insulator, still air. This buffer zone had to be thick enough to completely neutralize the vampire effect of the frozen ground. And to create it, they used what was always at hand, turning simple branches and grass into highly effective insulating material. Did you know that the ground, not the air, is the main threat when camping in the cold? But what if I told you that to solve this problem, indigenous peoples invented the double spring mattress technology, which is as effective as modern camping mats? In the next chapter, we'll uncover the main secret, the trick of double layering. I'll reveal the most guarded secret of comfortable sleep in the cold, and it's brilliant in its simplicity. Indigenous peoples never slept directly on the floor of their homes, whether it was the earth floor of a teepee or the wooden platform of a longhouse. They built a special bed made of two functionally different layers, and this was a true engineering solution. The first layer, the lower one, was the foundation. It was the springing insulation. Its task was to create a thick layer of dead air between the sleeper and the cold earth. This layer wasn't meant to warm, it was meant to keep the cold out. In the eastern forests and subarctic regions, they used boughs, branches of coniferous trees such as spruce or fir. The branches weren't just thrown on the ground, but were laid in a special way, like shingles on a roof. They were pushed into the snow or earth at an angle, so that the resilient needles created a fluffy, springy mass. The thickness of this layer was crucial. It wasn't a thin mat. The height of such a bed could reach 30, even 50 centimeters. Only this thickness guaranteed that under the weight of the body, enough air would remain to completely stop heat exchange with the ground. On the Great Plains, where coniferous trees were rare, tall, dry grass was used. It was gathered into large bundles and laid in thick layers. Thick mats made from rushes or cattails were also woven, which by themselves were excellent at trapping air and served as a perfect base. So, the first layer was created, a resilient, thick mattress made of branches or grass filled with air. but lying on prickly branches or tough grass was uncomfortable. So, on top of this, a second layer was added, the layer of comfort and heat reflection. A person would lie on this construction, which was soft, resilient, and most importantly, already warm, because it didn't steal body heat, but began to accumulate it right away. This simple but ingenious technology was the foundation of comfortable sleep. If you're impressed by this ingenuity, based purely on physics, give this video a like. Guess what happened next when the body was perfectly isolated from the icy ground? The bed was ready, but now it was necessary to protect oneself from the cold air above and retain the heat the body generated. For this, Native Americans used what can be called the most effective sleeping bag of the pre-industrial era. We're talking about heavy winter pelts, primarily bison furs. Winter bison fur isn't just wool, it's a complex system of long guard hairs and incredibly dense, soft underfur. This structure is perfectly adapted for trapping air. Unlike modern sleeping bags, this wasn't a bag you crawled into. It was a large, heavy, and warm envelope. The person would lie on the already prepared double mattress and simply cover themselves with one or two heavy bison hides. The secret lay in how exactly it was done. They didn't just throw the skin over themselves like a blanket. They carefully tucked in the edges underneath themselves on all sides, under their back, sides, and legs. In this way, they created a closed cocoon. The heat from their body warmed a small volume of air inside this envelope, and the thick fur and skin prevented that warm air from escaping. The weight of the hide itself pressed the edges down tightly, leaving no gaps for drafts. People rarely slept alone, especially on the coldest nights. Families, husbands, wives, and their close ones would lie together under one or more large pelts. This was the most effective way to generate and retain heat. Several stoves worked together, warming the common space. How effective does this system seem compared to a modern down sleeping bag? But a warm bed was just one element. How did they warm their actual shelter? In the next chapter, you'll learn how the Lakota teepee wasn't just a simple tent, but a true heat engine. Creating a warm bed was a key element of survival, but its effectiveness increased many times over inside a properly designed home. Take, for example, the teepee of the Great Plains peoples. At first glance, it's just a cone of poles covered in hides, but in reality, it's a complex and perfectly designed climate system. Firstly, the teepee was always placed with the entrance facing away from the wind, usually to the east. This protected it from prevailing western winds. But the real magic was inside. The teepee isn't a sealed tent. It's a breathing mechanism designed for safe fire. In the center of the dwelling was a small hearth. The smoke from it would rise up through the hole created by the poles. But how did the smoke escape so efficiently without filling the entire space? This was controlled by two special wings, or ears, at the top of the cover. These wings could be adjusted with separate poles. Depending on the wind direction, they would be turned in such a way as to create draft. The wind, blowing against the cone from the outside, would create a low-pressure area around the smoke hole, literally sucking the smoke out. But the most important element for heat and comfort was called the ozan, or inner lining. This was the second wall inside the teepee, made from thinner hides. It ran along the perimeter of the dwelling, from the ground to a height of about 1.5 to 2 meters. This inner lining created an air gap between itself and the outer covering of the teepee. The cold air, which inevitably seeped under the edge of the outer covering, wouldn't enter the living space. Instead, it would move upwards in this gap between the two walls. Similar principles, though in a different form, were applied in the wigwams of forest peoples. The domed shape was resistant to the wind, and the cover made from multiple layers of bark or reed mats was an excellent insulator in itself. The hearth was also in the center, and the smoke escaped through a hole in the roof. Are you ready for the shocking truth about how hundreds of people comfortably wintered in a single building without central heating? If the teepee was a masterpiece of mobile architecture, the Iroquois longhouse, Haudenosaunee, was a monumental achievement in communal engineering. These structures were not just homes, they were entire villages under one roof. Imagine a building 60 and sometimes even 100 meters long, built from a strong wooden frame. The outside was covered with large slabs of elm bark. Bark is a fantastic natural insulator. Porous and thick, it retained heat far better than solid logs. Inside the house, there was a long central corridor, with hearths placed at equal distances along both sides. Each hearth was shared by two families who lived across from each other. Smoke would escape through well-thought-out holes in the roof. But the main secret of comfort lay in the organization of living space. No one slept on the cold earth floor. Along both walls, at about 1 meter above the ground, were wide wooden platforms or bunks. This was a brilliant solution. By raising the living level by 1 meter, the Iroquois immediately solved several problems. Firstly, they physically moved away from the coldest place, the ground. Secondly, they positioned themselves in the zone of warmer air, which collected under the ceiling. These wide platforms were their apartments. They slept, worked, and stored their belongings there. It was their living area. Beneath the platforms, in the space below, they stored firewood, keeping it dry. Of course, no one slept directly on the bare boards. On top of these platforms, the same insulation system as on the ground was used. First, thick woven mats of cattail were laid down, then several layers of hides, usually deer or bear skins. The principle of layering and air traps was the foundation not only for the bed, but for all clothing. Native Americans didn't wear one thick and heavy coat. Their winter attire was a carefully designed system of multiple layers, each serving its own function. The base layer was made from soft tanned leather, such as a shirt or dress. This layer absorbed moisture and was comfortable for the body. Over it, leggings were worn to cover the legs, and a loincloth was added. The key element was moccasins. They weren't just footwear, they were a crucial part of the thermoregulation system. Winter moccasins were sewn high, almost like boots, and were roomy to accommodate an insulating layer inside. This insulator was rarely fur. More often, the moccasins were stuffed with a special dry grass called moccasin grass. This grass was soft as down and had two invaluable properties. It heated excellently by creating an air cushion and absorbed sweat. At night, the wet grass was simply discarded and replaced with fresh, dry grass. This was a brilliant disposable membrane and insulator in one. Sometimes rabbit fur or other small fur animals were used for the same purpose. Fire was the heart of every winter dwelling, but it wasn't used the way we might think. Inside a teepee or wigwam, there was never a huge roaring fire. It would have been inefficient, dangerous, and required too much firewood. The hearth was small, compact, and very smart. It only used dry hardwood, which provided a lot of heat and little smoke. Its purpose wasn't to heat the whole room to room temperature, but to provide radiant heat to those sitting nearby and to allow for cooking. The main heating of the dwelling occurred by retaining the heat generated by the people themselves and this small hearth. The walls, ozan in the teepee, bark in the longhouse, held this heat. The air inside was cool but not freezing, and absolutely comfortable for living. But fire also had another crucial function. It was the source of heat accumulators. Native Americans actively used the method of hot stones. This was a simple, safe, and incredibly effective personal heating technology. Near the hearth, or right next to it, there were always several smooth stones of medium size. Throughout the day, they would be heated to a high temperature. When it was time for the family to sleep, these stones would be removed from the fire. The heated stone, of course, wasn't placed directly in the bed. It was wrapped in several layers of old but durable leather, or placed in a special leather pouch. This created a safe, long-lasting heat pack that couldn't burn anyone or set the bed on fire. If the plains and forest peoples were masters of winter comfort, the subarctic peoples, such as the Cree and Athabascans, lived in conditions that seem almost impossible to us. Temperatures dropping to -40 and lower were normal for them, and their methods were perfected to absolute perfection. The main material for them wasn't bison hides, but caribou, reindeer skins. As mentioned earlier, the hair of caribou is hollow inside. Clothing made from these hides was incredibly light and had thermal insulation properties that surpassed all known natural materials. They sewed full suits, consisting of pants, parkas with hoods, and mittens. Often such a suit was double-layered, one layer with the fur inside, next to the body, and the second with the fur on the outside. This created unparalleled air insulation. Their temporary shelters in the forest were often simple windbreaks, but the bedding was always built according to the same principle. They created an incredibly thick, up to half-a-meter layer of spruce boughs. This bedding was their only protection from frozen ground or deep snow. Sleeping on snow was an art in itself. They knew that deep, loose snow itself was an excellent insulator. Sometimes they simply dug a trench in the snow, lined it with a thick layer of spruce boughs, and slept there, covering themselves with hides and protecting themselves from the wind. Sometimes they built a temporary shelter known as a quinsy. To do this, they would stick many sticks into a large snowbank to the same depth, about 30 centimeters. Then they would begin to scoop out the snow from the inside. This was a true science of survival, where there was no room for error. Every action was calculated, and each material was used with a full understanding of its properties. This allowed them to live where, by our standards, life would seem impossible. Ultimately, none of these technologies would have worked alone. The secret to the comfortable winters of Native Americans lay not in any one trick, but in a holistic, integrated system. Each element supported and enhanced the others. Layered clothing made of skins allowed them to be outside. Effective dwellings, tipis, longhouses, blocked the wind and created a base microclimate. And the ingenious double layering solved the main problem: heat loss through the ground. But there was also one more, intangible, yet critically important component: social warmth. People lived in communities, not alone. In winter, families in tipis or longhouses spent a lot of time together. The practice of sleeping together was not only a social norm, but also a crucial element of thermoregulation. Several bodies under the same hides generate far more heat than one. This allowed them to warm the youngest and oldest members of the community. This collectivism was just as much a part of winter survival as fur clothing. Heat was shared just as food was shared. It was a collective responsibility. Equally important was the knowledge itself. This complex system wasn't instinctive. It was a vast body of scientific information. Every generation passed down to the next precise instructions: how to choose boughs, how to cut hides, how to position the teepee against the wind, how to read the weather by the sky. Their whole life was built on the principle of efficiency and rationality. And their ability to sleep warm on frozen ground is perhaps the brightest testament to their genius. see that comfortable sleep on frozen ground is not magic or superpowers, but the result of precise calculation and deep knowledge. The indigenous peoples of North America developed a genius system based on 3 pillars: insulation from the earth, body heat retention, and creating a protected microclimate within the dwelling.
Thank you. It smells wonderful.
What other aspects of Native American life or technologies would you like to see in future videos? Perhaps you're interested in their food preservation methods or hunting strategies. Suggest your topics in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss new research.